If someone does wrong, it is their problem, but it becomes yours if you let yourself be troubled by it. Marcus Aurelius. Have you ever walked away from a conversation, one where someone embarrassed or mocked you, and hours later, while brushing your teeth or lying in bed, the perfect comeback suddenly pops into your mind? You replay the moment over and over again, what you could have said, what you should have said, how everyone looked at you, and how small you felt in that moment. That feeling, that hollow pit in your stomach, that's humiliation. It stays with you, sometimes for days, sometimes for years. It's one of those experiences that doesn't just bruise your ego, it attacks your sense of dignity. It makes you feel like you've lost control, like someone reached inside you and flipped your emotional switches without permission. And the worst part? It often happens in front of others. An offhand comment in a meeting, a sarcastic joke at your expense in front of friends, a deliberate insult on social media meant to provoke you and make you react. In those moments, you might feel the rush to defend yourself, to fire back, to show strength, because silence can feel like surrender, like weakness. And the world we live in often tells us to stand up for ourselves, to never let anyone walk all over us. But what if I told you that staying calm when someone tries to humiliate you isn't weakness at all? What if silence isn't surrender, but strategy? What if walking away doesn't mean you lost, but that you just refuse to play their game? Because here's the truth, not all power is loud. In fact, the deepest, strongest form of power is the kind that doesn't flinch, doesn't rise to every insult or accusation, the kind that holds its ground without needing an audience. This is the power the ancient Stoics cultivated. They understood that being provoked is a trap, and that overreacting is exactly what the humiliator wants. It gives them control, it feeds their ego, it pulls you down to their level. So what's the Stoic alternative? It's not about bottling everything up or pretending to be unaffected. It's about mastering your emotions, choosing your response, and standing firm in your dignity, even when someone tries to strip it from you. In this video, we're going to explore exactly how the Stoics handled humiliation and why their strategies still work in today's loud, reaction-driven world. We'll break down what happens in your mind during a moment of public embarrassment, and we'll show you how to respond with calm clarity, not chaos. Because sometimes the strongest move you can make is none at all. This isn't about ignoring problems or tolerating disrespect. This is about learning how to win the inner battle, the one between your pride and your peace, the one between your impulse and your integrity. So if you've ever been caught off guard, if you've ever been humiliated and didn't know what to do, or if you're simply tired of giving people the power to ruin your day, stay with me. Because the Stoic defense is not only powerful, it's dignified, and it just might change the way you handle every confrontation from now on. 1. The real cost of humiliation. Why it hurts so much. Humiliation isn't just a moment, it's a wound. It cuts deep, because it hits us at the level of identity. Unlike anger or frustration, which are often triggered by things outside of us, humiliation feels like a direct attack on who we are. It says, "You're not smart enough. You're not worthy of respect. You're small, and everyone sees it." And because it often happens publicly, where others are watching, the shame doesn't just live in your own mind, it echoes in your imagination. What did they think of me? Did they lose respect for me? Will they treat me differently now? The Stoics understood this too. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." In other words, the insult might come from the outside, but the suffering comes from the inside. Why? Because part of us agrees with the insult, or at least fears that it might be true. And that's the real cost of humiliation. It activates your most insecure thoughts and throws them into the spotlight. It hijacks your self-worth. It exposes your need for approval, and it pressures you to react, not from reason, but from wounded pride. Most people respond to humiliation in one of three ways. 1. Retaliation. firing back, trying to reclaim dignity with force or sarcasm. It might feel satisfying in the moment, but often it escalates the situation and gives the other person exactly what they want: your energy. 2. Withdrawal. Shutting down, disappearing, avoiding people. This preserves some peace, but it can also create a sense of shame and resentment that festers. 3. Rehearsal. Playing the moment over and over again in your mind, trying to rewrite history. But the brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and memory, so you end up reliving the pain every time you rehearse it. The Stoic approach is different. It begins by separating the event from your judgment of the event. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In other words, the insult didn't humiliate you. Your interpretation did. Someone mocked you? That's on them. Someone tried to embarrass you in front of others? That's their character showing, not yours. Your dignity isn't something they can remove. It's something you surrender when you give them power over your emotions. And that's the core of Stoic resilience. You don't avoid pain, but you don't attach to it either. You observe it, you understand it, and then you choose your response. Because the cost of humiliation doesn't come from the moment itself. It comes from how long you carry it. And the Stoic path is about learning how to let go. 2. Why the Stoics never took humiliation personally. The Stoics were not immune to insults. They were criticized, mocked, even exiled. But what set them apart wasn't their immunity to pain. It was their ability to remain unshaken by it. They understood something most people still miss. What someone says about you says more about them than it does about you. Epictetus was born into slavery. He had every reason to feel beneath others. But instead of letting that define him, he trained his mind to rise above the opinions of others. He said, "When someone provokes you, remember that it is your judgment that provokes you." And Marcus Aurelius, an emperor constantly surrounded by schemers and critics, reminded himself, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." In other words, humiliation isn't a fact, it's a feeling, and feelings are subject to interpretation. The Stoics believed you could observe an insult the same way you observe a passing cloud. You don't have to follow it. You don't have to believe it. You certainly don't have to chase it down and argue with it. So how did they not take it personally? They used a powerful mindset shift. It's not about me. When someone insults you publicly, makes fun of your appearance, your work, your voice, your ideas, Stoics saw this for what it is, a reflection of the other person's state of mind. If someone mocks you to feel powerful, that reveals their insecurity. If someone humiliates you to entertain others, it shows their need for attention. If someone criticizes you harshly and unnecessarily, it's their inner chaos leaking out, not a statement of your worth. Seneca said, "A wise man is indifferent to insult, not because he doesn't care, but because he sees through it." When you take things personally, you shrink yourself to fit the narrative of the one who attacked you. You let them define the script. You let their emotional immaturity write your emotional response. But the Stoic flips the script. They ask, what kind of person would say that? What does this tell me about them, not me? And do I really want to give my peace away to someone who clearly hasn't found theirs? You are not the opinion others hold of you. You are your actions, your values, your character. The Stoics knew the only way to not be humiliated is to refuse to be humiliated. Not by pretending it didn't happen, but by rising above the need to prove anything at all. Because once you stop taking it personally, you take the first step toward taking back your power. 3. The power of the pause. How Stoics created space before reacting. Imagine someone says something deeply insulting to you in front of others. Your blood rises, your jaw tightens, your heart rate spikes. This is the body preparing for battle. But the Stoics had a weapon far more powerful than any verbal counterattack. The pause. A moment of stillness, a space between trigger and response, a breath. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." But here's the catch. If you react instantly, you don't give yourself time to judge anything clearly. You operate on impulse. Emotion takes the wheel, and often regret comes shortly after. The Stoics trained themselves to pause, not to suppress their feelings, but to examine them. This practice is ancient, but it's now backed by modern neuroscience. When someone insults you, your amygdala, the emotional response center in the brain, lights up. It pushes you toward fight or flight. But if you can pause, even for 2 to 5 seconds, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reason, decision-making, and self-control. That pause is your power. It gives you time to ask, is this worth responding to? What outcome do I want here? Will reacting help or hurt my peace? The pause allows your higher self to step in before your pride does. Marcus Aurelius would ask himself each morning to expect difficult people. He mentally rehearsed the insults, the criticism, the drama, so he wouldn't be shocked when it arrived. He already had a buffer. He had already paused before the day even began. This is premeditatio malorum, the Stoic practice of anticipating trouble in advance, not to become pessimistic, but to become prepared. So how do you practice the pause in daily life? When someone sends a rude message, don't reply right away. When someone tries to bait you in a meeting, take a sip of water. When someone mocks you in front of others, breathe and observe. Don't flinch. Silence in that moment isn't weakness. It's containment. It's strength under control. The pause isn't about ignoring what happened. It's about choosing how to deal with it, on your terms, not theirs. In that pause, you regain clarity. In that pause, you protect your peace. In that pause, you win without even speaking. 4. How to respond without losing your dignity. There's a common misconception that the only options in the face of humiliation are 1. Fight back. 2. Stay silent and swallow it. But the Stoics offered a third path, one that's much harder, but far more powerful. Respond with calm dignity. Marcus Aurelius ruled one of the most powerful empires in history, but he constantly reminded himself, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Think about that. When someone humiliates you and you retaliate, you become just like them. When you shut down completely, you let them define your silence. But when you respond, not react, with composure, you rise above the situation without leaving it untouched. Here's what that looks like in real life. Someone mocks you in a meeting? You look them in the eye and say calmly, "Was there a point behind that comment? Or was it just meant to entertain?" Someone makes a joke at your expense? You smile slightly and respond, "That's one way to see it." Then you return to your focus. Someone tries to pull you into an argument in front of others? You reply, "I'd rather discuss that when we're both calm." And then you move on. You don't match their tone. You don't raise your voice. You don't give them your emotional fuel. Because the moment you lose your center, you lose your power. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." When you're publicly insulted or embarrassed, that is your moment to prove yourself, not to others, but to you. To show that you are no longer governed by emotion. To show that your character cannot be baited. To show that you can take a hit and still walk with your head high. And this kind of response does more than protect your dignity. It disarms your opponent. Because most people don't know what to do when their insult doesn't land, when you don't flinch, when you don't engage, When your response is so poised that it reflects their behavior back to them. That's the Stoic counterattack. Calm, centered clarity. Not because you're afraid to fight, but because you've already won the battle inside. 5. When walking away is the most powerful move. There's a moment, after the insult is thrown, after the eyes turn to you, after the adrenaline surges, where you have a choice. Do you stay and engage, or do you walk away? Most people think walking away means surrender. To the Stoics, walking away is mastery. It's not the move of someone who can't fight, it's the move of someone who no longer needs to. Epictetus said, "If someone succeeds in provoking you, realize that your mind is complicit in the provocation." When you walk away with calm, not avoidance, not fear, but calm, you're signaling something much deeper. That your dignity is not up for debate. That you don't chase validation. That you refuse to become entertainment for insecure people. And most of all, that your energy is not cheap. We live in a world where confrontation is glorified, where clapping back is seen as strength, where walking away is mocked as weakness. But ask yourself this: what kind of person walks away without losing their temper? What kind of person can hear disrespect and choose stillness over rage? That person is rare. That person is grounded. That person is a Stoic. Here's what walking away might look like. At work, someone ridicules you in front of the team. Instead of engaging, you say calmly, "This isn't a productive direction. Let's return to the issue." Or, you simply let their comment hang in the air and shift the conversation. In public, someone yells at you from across the street or tries to provoke you. You say nothing. You keep walking. You don't even give them the satisfaction of your gaze. On social media, someone misinterprets your post or insults you in the comments. You don't reply. You don't defend. You delete, block, or scroll on. This isn't being passive. This is choosing where your attention goes. And attention is your most valuable currency. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." Walking away doesn't mean you didn't notice the insult. It means you noticed it and decided it wasn't worth your peace. Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't louder words or sharper comebacks. Sometimes the power move is stillness. Sometimes it's turning your back on the drama and moving forward with dignity. 6. How to reclaim your power after the moment has passed. Let's be honest. Sometimes you don't respond the way you wanted to. Sometimes you freeze, you go blank, you laugh nervously, you say nothing. Or worse, you lash out, then regret it later. And after the moment passes, the shame creeps in, the self-judgment, the replays in your mind, the made-up comebacks that arrive too late. But here's the truth the Stoics understood. Power isn't just in the moment. Power is in what you do after. Marcus Aurelius journaled at night, not to punish himself, but to reflect, to recenter, to ask, "Where did I lose control today? Where did I hold my ground? What can I do better tomorrow?" This practice is what modern psychology calls self-distanced reflection. It's the ability to observe yourself without identifying as a failure, because you are not the moment you froze. You are not the mistake you made in public. You are not defined by one reaction under pressure. You are defined by your next decision. So how do you reclaim your power after you feel humiliated? 1. Name it without shame. Say to yourself, "I felt embarrassed. I wanted to respond better. I didn't." No stories, no judgment, just facts. That's Stoic clarity. 2. Separate the event from the emotion. Ask what actually happened. Then ask, what did I make it mean about me? This is how you stop the spiral of overthinking. 3. Rehearse better responses for the future, not obsessively, but intentionally. What would I like to say next time? How can I hold my dignity without escalating the situation? This is training, not rumination. 4. Act with integrity. Now, maybe you follow up with the person if appropriate. Maybe you simply move on. Maybe you write about it, talk to someone, or use the lesson to strengthen your boundaries. But whatever you do, don't stay stuck. Epictetus reminded us, it's not what happens that defines you, but what you do with it. Humiliation feels like it takes your power away, but every time you reflect honestly, detach gracefully, and choose your next move wisely, you take that power back. Because real strength is not about always saying the right thing, it's about becoming the kind of person who learns from everything, especially the moments you wish you could redo. 7. Final Stoic defense, from reactivity to resilience. We began this journey with a simple question. How do you stay calm when someone tries to humiliate you? And now, we end with a deeper one. Who are you when no one can shake you? Because that's what Stoicism is about. It's not about being emotionless, it's about being unshakable. It's not about pretending things don't affect you, it's about deciding what gets to control you. Let's recap the Stoic defense. Humiliation is a test of ego. But you are not your ego, you are your character. You are never obligated to react. The pause is your power. You can respond with dignity. Calm clarity disarms cruelty. Walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Even when you fall short, you can reflect, reset, and reclaim your power. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations to impress anyone. He wrote them to train himself, to remember who he was, even in the face of chaos. And that's your challenge now, to stop fighting for control of other people and start mastering your response to them. To stop measuring strength by how loud you can argue and start measuring it by how still you can remain. To understand that humiliation is temporary, but dignity is a choice. So the next time someone mocks you, insults you, or tries to drag you down, don't flinch. Don't fight their fire with more fire. Don't hand them your peace. Instead, pause, breathe, observe, and if needed, walk away like someone who knows exactly who they are. Because you don't need to win the moment. You just need to win yourself. That's the Stoic way. That's the quiet strength. And that is how you turn reactivity into resilience.